Here's another fine example of the corporate state. Atlanta police are punishing people for giving food to the homeless. Wow, that's noble. This is the city, of course, that when they hosted the Olympics in 1996, gave homeless people one-way bus tickets to anywhere, provided they signed a statement saying they would not return. This is how America, the richest country in the history of the world, treats its homeless. And now they're punishing people that want to feed the homeless. So I'm sure anybody from just a cursory glance or from a distance would agree with what I'll give you this quote from one of the agencies that is in charge of handing out the tickets and with the enforcement is the Georgia State University's campus police. The police chief, Joe Spillane, this is from an article in the Intercept, by the way, that I think, Zaid Jalani wrote, that the Georgia State Police coordinate with the Atlanta Police, and this is the reasons why they do this. We do coordinate efforts with the APD when it comes to large gatherings and permitting issues. Our stepped-up enforcement has to do with an increase in the amount of large numbers that congregate waiting for food, several hundred people. Fights, trash, urinating, and defecating in the park, etc. We have to clean the park 4 times a day, Saturday and Sunday, as these groups give food away in containers and leave without taking their trash with them. The containers and trash litter the park and surrounding streets after each feeding. We also have concerns over the safety of the food being served, as there are health regulations that apply to serving food in public places or anywhere for that matter. So they're enacting this very old law that's been on the books that they have not enforced. They just decided to enforce it, where you have to have a permit if you're going to hand out food. Now, that statement on its own, like, I don't live in Atlanta, I don't know, I read that statement, I can go, yeah, I see the point. You get a lot of homeless together, there's going to be problems. But here's where this doesn't make sense. First of all, as I said, it's the law that's been on the books for a long time, and now they just suddenly decide to enforce it? And more importantly, let's say, well, first of all, then the organization that's called, I believe, Food Not Bombs. There's an organization, there's a Justice for All Coalition, and there is also the organization Food Not Bombs Volunteers, right? And they've been doing this every weekend. So there's several things. So on Saturdays and Sundays, the park gets overrun with homeless and it's dirty. Well, the shelters are all full on the weekends, according to this article. So the police's claim, like, and one of the things they claimed is that they they handed out a flyer. The Georgia Police, the state police, distributed a flyer produced by Atlanta's Department of Public Safety about the enforcement of the county ordinance that requires permits for the operation of a food service establishment. According to the flyer, enforcement is necessary for sanitary reasons and because many people become dependent on these activities, leading them to stay on the streets instead of seeking help and support that they truly need. But all the shelters are full. So that's another bullshit excuse. The shelters are full. These people are not getting help. That's this myth about the homeless. Most of them are just lazy. They don't want to get help. That's a myth. Many of the people are suffering from mental illness. Some are not. Some are just able-bodied people that have lost everything. Just think about, you don't have much of a safety net. You know, I've said repeatedly, 60% of this country can't handle like a $500 emergency. Can't handle it. So imagine if that happened and then you couldn't pay your rent and then you had nowhere else to go. You didn't have family or friends there. And then you lost your job and now you're on the streets. Right? Are those people lazy? So it's again, we're the homeless, the dumb poor people. That's part of the narrative, right? Part of the narrative. So and it just shows that the reason for this all sounds good in a press release or on a flyer, but when you dig into it, there's not enough room on the weekends, according to this article, and that's what the Food Not Bombs people have said. And then the person from the Georgia State Police that said, "Oh, there's filth," and they go to the bathroom in the park and everything. One of the people let me make sure I got his name right. Marshall Rancifer, the founder and outreach director of Justice for All Coalition, has spent 17 years working with Atlanta's homeless. He told The Intercept that resources to feed the homeless are especially limited over the weekend when shelters are packed, making street feeding often the easiest way to get food to the population. So they're not hanging out in the street, becoming dependent upon street feeding and just, oh, they're lazy and they don't want to get services. It's too hard for them to get services, right? So on November 11th, after they got done distributing food, that's when the Georgia State Police started handing out tickets. I stepped forward and told them they couldn't stop people from feeding people in the park. That was people's God-given right to take care of each other. Not in a corporate police state, it isn't. How dare you want to help the poor? You're going to get a fine for helping the poor. Jesus would have fed these people. Just kind of I'm sure a lot of these cops are like, I'm a good Christian, right? Good Southern Christian cops. Really? Then you should allow these people to be fed. Right? But after they released that statement saying, oh, they leave trash everywhere and we have to clean it up, Rancifer disagrees with the city's explanation for sudden enforcement, saying the litter is not a major problem. Some people who come out and feed don't clean up behind themselves, but the majority of those do clean up after themselves. This is a guy who's been doing it for 17 years. Right? But this is a city, Atlanta, in 2012 passed a very aggressive anti-panhandling law that makes soliciting for money in certain areas a crime punishable by community service or jail. So you can't feed or give somebody money. Keisha Lance Bottoms, one of the two contenders in Atlanta's mayoral runoff, supported the bill. If you live in Atlanta, you might want to take that into consideration who you vote for. This is not a heartless piece of legislation, she said. Like others on the city council, she pointed to services the city maintains for the homeless as an alternative. Is there enough for that much homeless? Because this country doesn't want to deal with mental illness. Much of the homeless population in any city is untreated mental illness. There's not enough beds. There's not enough resources. So it's just another example. Hats off to the Food Not Bombs activists. Said that the threat of a civil citation won't stop them. The group said they plan to serve meals outside the courthouse on the day of her hearing. There's going to be meal serving outside the courthouse on that same day. So I'm doing court at 8 a.m. on the 14th, and we will be outside with a table, coffee, and breakfast. That's the kind of resistance I'm talking about. That's the kind of the peaceful resistance that Chris Hedges talks about, that he talked about in Death of the Liberal Class. It's this kind of resistance. You're getting fined for feeding the homeless, helping another human being, helping someone that's down on their luck is a punishable crime. That's the country we live in. This is the police corporate state. The corporations run everything, and the police are just their Pinkertons. Police departments are just jackboot mercenaries for the corporate state. This offends me. I would love for this woman that's running for office, I would love for these chiefs of police from Atlanta Police Department and the Georgia State University Police Department to go live on the street for a couple of days and just see what it's like. Live on the street. Just on the street, you got nothing. No credit card, no cell phone. Just live on the street and go find all the services, right? See who can handle it. They did a news story here in LA, and there's this man from Orange County, which Orange County is a primarily white, fairly affluent part of Southern California. And this guy and his son were like, let's test out this theory, because they have, the homeless are lazy and they don't want to, and they went on the street and tried to get services, and a camera crew followed them around, and it was like, they were like, man, by the end of the day, they're like, this is maddening. It was red tape, couldn't get this, couldn't get that. They started getting hungry. They were getting irritable. One day, like 6 hours on the streets. So I'd like to live in a country actually where we cut our military budget. I'd like to live in a country where we help the homeless. I'd like to live in a country where we see, you know, as it says in the Bible, what you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me. I'd like to see a country where that's taken care of. I live in a big city where I see homeless all the time. Sometimes I give them some food. Sometimes I give them some money. I don't know. I try not to give them money because I don't want them to buy booze and alcohol with it. But it's, I mean, we have the money to get everyone off the street, get them the health care they need, get them the mental health care they need, get them reintegrated back into society. And the certain percentages that can't, we should be able to house and take care of them. Not when you spend, 60-some% of your budget on the military, not when $700 billion a year goes for the military, and certainly not when you vote to give Trump $80 billion extra dollars that he didn't ask for. And some of our good old Democratic pals, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Tim Kaine, Dianne Feinstein, the same old gang of corporate Democrats, gave Trump an extra 80. I wonder what $80 billion could do for the homeless population. Huh. I wonder what $1 billion in 80 major cities, in all of the major cities in America that have a homeless problem. I wonder if $1 billion per city to fight the homeless could do anything about that, rather than giving non-for-profit charitable organizations that want to feed homeless people tickets. And then how much tax money is being spent to send these cops out to write these tickets up, to now these people have court dates. So our courts are now jammed up with philanthropists. That's who's going to jam up the courts. That our tax. If you live in Georgia, do you like this? If you live in Atlanta, do you like this? Are you happy this is where your tax money and your resource? This is what you want the police to do? Don't break up a sex trafficking ring. Don't stop pedophiles. Don't stop a meth lab. Don't do that. Don't be out there stopping domestic abuse or child abuse, or don't stop any of those things. Go give tickets to the Food for Bombs gang. Yeah, let's get them off the streets, handing out their food like a bunch of goddamn godless hippies. Does that make sense to you? It really offends me. If you live in Atlanta, you might want to speak up about this. Thanks for watching the show.